So can you folks tolerate another story from me, possibly? Would that actually work? Because actually, I did turn out much better than that original story. I did end up with a partner. We've been together 31 years. I know. In gay years, that's like 100, so we feel very, very proud of ourselves. So when I grew up in Washington, D.C., and my dad was an FBI agent with J. Edgar Hoover. My mom was actually Jimmy Hoffa's secretary. There's a lot of stories from that, but that's for another time. But living in New England, I now see that fathers tend to kind of take their sons on Saturday mornings to the dump or to the hardware store. And I used to go to the bureau where Dad would shoot in the firing range in the basement of the FBI building. And, they had those paper things at the end with the silhouette of a person, and I would sit with my earphones on, my father would have his on, and he would shoot, and then they'd zoom up, and we could see like how many kills he had. And then I would roll these up and take them home and put them on my bedroom wall, which I think was probably very different than what the other kids were doing on their bedroom walls. I'm not quite sure what my bedroom wall said to the neighbors. But then, of course, my mother worked for Jimmy Hoffa, so I don't think anyone probably said anything to my parents. So that all becomes a little relevant a little later on in the story. But my partner and I are still not married. I'm not quite sure he's the one yet. There's still some issues like the clothes on the floor that bother me. But we tend to have honeymoons instead of weddings, because why spend money on other people when we can spend it on ourselves, is our philosophy. So one particular trip, we decided to go to San Juan. We were going to do the tropical vacation of a lifetime. Sand, surf, sea, hands on the beach, on the sunset. Like we were just going to sort of do it all. So we go and we're having a wonderful time. I can't say enough about what a beautiful place it is. And one day, after a long day on the beach and a lot of sun, we decided to go into Old San Juan for dinner. And Old San Juan is designed like most Spanish colonial towns. It's got a big square in the middle and then side streets off the end. So this next part, I just want to say that if any of you have ever been in a relationship ever in your entire life, you know what this particular part is like. We're looking to find a restaurant that we both will go to. And Michael picks one, and I say, well, there's not a lot of people on that one. How good could it be if there's not a lot of people? He would pick one, and I would say, there's not enough fish on the menu. I really want fish tonight. We're at the ocean. Let's have fish. Well, we could not get our ducks in a row so much that on our romantic tropical vacation, we weren't even walking anywhere near each other. At this point, he was about 20 feet ahead of me. And so we're walking along in our miserable moods, and this kid actually, comes up and starts talking to me in Spanish. And I said, no habla español. And he keeps talking, and I said, no, English, I speak English. And so he keeps talking to me. And Michael turns around and does this. And I said, he's asking me a question. So as Michael's walking toward me, I said to the kid, I don't really understand what you're saying. And he said, give me your money, and takes a gun and sticks it into my rib cage. So Michael comes up and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, clearly I'm kind of in trouble right now. Let's bring our bad mood everywhere. And so he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, it's a fake gun, so let's just go. So we start walking, and so it's Michael and me and my friend walking down the street. And Michael said, I don't really understand, Kevin, why you stopped to talk to this guy. And I said, I didn't stop to talk to this guy. This guy stopped and talked to me. And he goes, it's all the same. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. He goes, but I don't understand, Kevin, why you would stop and talk to anyone in a language you don't speak. And I'm like, you're not understanding. I didn't stop to talk to him. I stopped because he was talking to me. And this poor kid is trying to rob us. And he can't get a word or a gun in edgewise. Like nothing. So he's like, and I said, oh, so you think this is my fault? And he goes, oh, you think it's mine? I don't have a gun in my rib cage. So I said, let's just walk to the plaza, which was probably like here to the end of this room. I said, let's just walk to the plaza. There's like hundreds and hundreds of people there and lots of lights. And so we walk into the plaza. I thought this kid would sort of get a little nervous and leave us. Oh, no. He felt quite confident to stay. Michael, Kevin, and guy with the gun. And so Michael's like, so what's your next idea? And I'm like, my next idea is that we have to duck into a bar somewhere or just a restaurant, just anywhere. We just need to get away from this kid. So the first place we go in, it was clearly a local dive. You know, smelled like beer-soaked carpet and Marlboro cigarettes. Walk in, can't see anything from the blinding light outside. It was as though they dragged the needle across the record and like all 100 eyes looked at us. And I said, we're better off with the guy with the gun than in here. So we go back out and my friend is still there. And I think because he knew the bar and knew we wouldn't last long there. And so we kept walking and we ducked into a different bar. And the bartender said, hola, amigos, how are you guys doing? A couple of margaritas? And we're like, sure. So we sit at the bar, have a margarita. My friend is pacing outside. But once we ordered the second margarita, he left. And during that second margarita, Michael said, so how did you know the gun was fake? And I said, well, I mean, you can tell a fake gun. And he goes, how? How did you tell a fake gun? Of course, I'm like arguing with someone who took hunter safety when he was 10, you know. And I said, you know, because it looks like a fake gun. And he said, so you don't really know if it was a fake gun? And I said, I only saw a gun once when I was a little kid at the FBI. I've never touched one before. And he said, oh my God, you are such an idiot. And I thought, can we please salvage this evening somehow? And we did. We went to Hooters for dinner. Because it was well lit. The staff were incredibly friendly and solicitous. And so I would recommend if any of you go on a tropical vacation with a gay man and you find yourselves being held at gunpoint, have 2 margaritas and go to Hooters where the service is excellent. Thank you.